I'm Karen of the Family Class, and I have a great appreciation for each of you who has allowed me to enter into your life each week. Together, we bring what was hidden into the public eye to see and to feel, to know, to deepen into higher knowledge, therefore activating our divine authority. So just take a deep breath in of life force energy. And as you do, allow that breath to open your mind and heart as we offer up another feast of delicious truth. Tonight we have Mary Croft joining us. She's a Canadian rebel who is fearless, a passionate truth seeker, an incredible author of 2 books. One she wrote 20 years ago, How I Clobbered Every Bureaucrat Cash Confiscatory Agency Known to Man. And this year she wrote How I Clobbered #2. I remember reading her first book and it changed my life in such profound ways in relationship to how our reality really works, which is what we've been talking about here at Life First Canada the past few years. Unfortunately, many people are suffering from cognitive dissonance, which refers to a situation involving conflicting beliefs. Much of what Mary is telling you may not be in alignment with what you were taught. We need to remember that everything that we have been taught is a lie. So now we need to learn the truth and really start taking action in our own lives so that we can rise up. Mary is going to be talking about a few topics this evening. I've added many questions because I think it will be great for Mary to give us a foundation before we get into all the other topics. So she's going to be talking about the truth about Canada as a corporation, fraudulent national debt, the birth certificate system, credit reporting bureau, credit card debt, the truth about mortgages, utility bills, parking tickets, traffic tickets. And then, of course, everyone wants to know the truth about CRA. And then, of course, remedy, what that can look like in regards to people or assisting those who are in really deep trouble. And then at the end, of course, we can talk about how to help the children. We may be here for a while. Sorry, this information can be overwhelming, and each of these topics can be discussed for many days, and it may take some time to integrate. So each question really offers a digestible bite-sized pieces. So I do recommend that you listen to the replay here many times so this information can really become a part of you. Now, if you have not read any of Mary's books, we recommend that you do. Karen Hanna is going to be uploading them in the chat. Okay, let's get started. Welcome, Mary, to our Life First Canada podcast. I just want to have you tell your story. As I mentioned, there's quite a few people here that know who you are. They've read your books. However, there are some who have not, and they're just discovering who you are. So before we get into that list of all my questions, just give a brief summary of how you got inspired to take this path and write these books.
Good question. I think I came in with it. I can remember being about age 4, maybe 5, and my father was leaving the house first thing in the morning. I said, "Where are you going?" He said, "To work." "Work?" He said, "Yeah, I have to make enough money to pay for this house and put food on the table." And I just remember distinctly thinking, well, that can't be right. But as time went on, I mean, that's where we find out that why do we have to earn our living? That's insane. We were given a living. Why do we have to earn it? So, and I was surprised to find out that there were children in other countries who didn't have enough to eat. And this was, well, I was marble-mouthed. I thought, this can't be right. But that's just childhood. And then I went through the adolescent stuff, but I started noticing just the way the banks were. And I always had this insecurity. As I wrote in my first book, when I was 19, I said to my mother, "I don't know what to do with my money. I don't trust the banks." Where did that come from? Sometimes I think I was actually that maybe I died when I fell out of the car and my grandfather stepped in. Sometimes I think I'm he. He was he had a column in the Toronto Herald, which preceded the Toronto Telegram, and his column, I still have it. He headed it, "We are being governed and taxed to death." And when I saw it, and I never saw it till my dad died, and I thought, oh, well, it's in my DNA. I mean, I just somehow came in with it. So, anyway, and then as the years ticked by and I went to the States to work and they wanted me to have a social security number, I thought, not so fast. What might that be about? Well, it's to pay tax. And I thought, I'm not American. I'm just working here for now. Why do I have to pay US tax? So just all these little things sort of just kept showing up, and I noticed I was trying to get around all this stuff. So, and ultimately I did, and I just couldn't let it go. You know how you just, yeah, it's just something you have to correct. I mean, a lot of people, if they're lucky, their chosen work is to do their best to unwind the lies, no matter what that might be. Like teachers may be seeing what's wrong with the school system, so they do their best to get out of it or in some way. I don't mean quit the job, I mean in some way. So that's kind of it. I just kept rolling, and I noticed every time I said, okay, I'm not doing this anymore, it's just too insane. Well, I just have to jump right back in. I couldn't let go of it. So there, that's pretty
I'm
much
I'm so glad you didn't let go.
a passion, just a passion, I guess, that about the wrong. And I feel pretty much the same way about health. And I thought, it's true, health is more important. If you don't have your health, your wealth
Yeah,
isn't going to do you any good. And if you don't have your wealth, well, you can still manage if you have health. So it was so it was dual, actually. So,
thanks, Mary. Okay, let's get into these really powerful questions. I think that everyone needs to know the truth about Canada. We've been talking about Canada being a corporation and that we have a fictional government. I love that you used the word fictional, by the way.
yeah, that's well, the whole thing is it's not real. I mean, everything is an illusion except the who I am. So if we can just step back and remember that none of this matters, but you kind of have to do what you have to do. So I do. Fictional, yeah. Well, I don't want to give a whole lot of history. Number one, I don't care about it, and I don't even think it's again, it's kind of like if you want to play Monopoly, do we need to know the history of the game? Do we need to know, was it really the Parker brothers who came up with it? No, actually, it wasn't. Who cares? But as you know, in order, the bankruptcy was declared, well, because Canada couldn't pay its debts, it became a corporate entity, and too many people believe they are Canadians when that's just not true. So it's a corporation. So it's a business. But how can we be subject to it? And I don't want to get, only because I don't know, I don't want to get into the fact that we're employees of Canada Inc. and we deserve uh, quarterly dividends. My focus is not to get back at those who have cheated us. It's to stop them from continuing. That's
Yes.
where I think our focus has to be. Just stop. And
Thank
and
you.
I get questions all the time, should I file suit? Should I go after? How can we make them follow their own laws? They're not going to. They're
No,
their laws. They can do what they want. We just have to stop them bothering us.
beautiful. Yes. Okay, let's talk about a little bit more about the foundation in regards to so that people will really get what you're talking about when you talk about credit cards, etc. You're the one that taught me years ago that the legal system is only for corporations. So can you tell us a little bit about contract law and that there's no constitutional law, Bill of Rights, Charter of Rights, and that apply to we the people, that it only applies to corporate entities?
The legislation are just rules for the game, but it's a game we can't play. But if we do want to play it, we need a token to play it. It's It's kind of like the rules of Monopoly. Do you need to know it? Yeah, but what are you going to do about it? It doesn't have anything to do with our lives unless we're playing the game. So we use our token and go around the board. It does help to know the rules if you're playing it. But we're not actually playing it. Therefore, we're not affected by it or shouldn't be affected by it. So when somebody writes me and says, oh my God, Bill C-36 or something, I don't know what it
Yes.
is. Number one, I don't bother reading it because it doesn't have anything to do with me. It has to do with whoever believes they're subject to the rules of a game they can't play.
Thank you. Yes.
So we cannot contract with a legal fiction. We can only contract with another man. But with any corporation, no man is going to be on the other side of that contract, only a legal fiction. So what does that tell you? Man to man, we can contract. Legal fiction to legal fiction can contract. So the entity that is contracting with that legal fiction, the corporation, has to be a legal fiction. And that's what the name is. It's an account. It doesn't really exist. It's a credit account. So that's legal fiction is contracting with legal fiction. We're not a party to it. But because it can neither negotiate nor sign, we're signing for it. And that's why we always write in behalf of or for the name. They can't come after us because we aren't the ones who enter into a contract, which is another thing when people say, we're trying to, what's the word they use, withdraw our signature or renege on these contracts or never mind, they're not real to start with. And as soon as they say, well, you have a credit, or pardon me, you have a contract with that credit card bank, I don't. My account does. So if you say that that name owes you, that's the account. You got access to it. Go for it. Don't bother me about my compensation for my labor, which is what our cash is. That's slavery. That's theft. Theft of labor is slavery, right? So they're wrong on all fronts. If I talk too much, I tend to rant, don't I?
No, I love this. I think everyone's really enjoying this. Now, we've covered and talked many times about the birth certificate here on our channel. And a lot of people still have really a big challenge with that concept. Can you just go into it a little bit?
Well, I did too. In fact, I did not get my second son. I did not bother getting my birth certificate because I did think it was trouble. And that's because I'd heard so many things. But I've come around to say, that's our ticket out. There's nothing wrong with the birth certificate as long as you know how to use it. It's simply an identifier of the account. And people tell me they want to send it back. And I think, why? It's like a stock certificate. If you've got a stock certificate that proves you have stock, why would you get rid of it? You need that for evidence to say, yes, I do have stock. Here it is. So I don't want to say it's a stock account as much as that's where our credit is. And you have to have some way of proving that we're the benefactor and therefore have a right to access that credit. And that's the birth certificate and subsequent alleged ID. And remember, the ID has nothing to do with us, just like everything else has nothing to do with us. But it does identify the account. So when, a cop says, what's your name? Well, hang on just a seckie now. Are you looking, you want to know how to address me? Or are you intending to charge my account? Well, we know it's the latter. So you're very careful about what you say and find out why. I mean, it's all right if you're at a cocktail party and somebody asks your name, tell them. It's not a big deal. But you don't talk to the public like that, even if you're just going to buy a phone at the phone store and he says, what's your name? Just a seckie now. So you need to know why they're asking. Do they want the account information or do they just want to be able to say Mary when they're talking to me?
Right.
They want the account information. So is that you? That's the other one. The cops hold up the driver license. Is this you?
Yeah.
You're pointing to a piece of plastic and asking if it's I. Did we get that? I see nothing wrong with the BC as long as you know not to identify with it. Is this your birth certificate? No, belongs to province of Ontario. No. But I am the benefactor for that account that they created for me. I told the bank because they have trouble with my date of birth because they're both single digits, month and day are single. So I said, here, let me make this easy for you. Change the date of birth because the real date of birth for that name, the name on the account, is, I didn't tell them this, but that date is 2 weeks after I was born because that's when it was born. Is it my birthday? No, but it is the date of birth of the name that they deal with. That's what they want, isn't it?
I read in your book that your signature was worth $15 billion.
I think at the time it probably wasn't that much. So wouldn't it have been great if my mother, when she was completing the statement of birth, that not only had she signed it Elizabeth, comma, benefactor, that would have been very handy, but at the top, wouldn't it have been great if she'd written security, value, $3 billion?
Yes.
Because then that security would have been deposited into my account. I'd be wealthy right off the bat. And they couldn't put 20 on and take the rest of it out. In other words, if we don't, it's like a check. It's like handing somebody a blank check, right? If you don't put the amount in, somebody else will.
Yes, exactly. That is so true. Can you just talk a little bit about there is no money and sovereigns can never be in debt?
I mean,
Men and women.
men and women can never be in debt. That's true. Well, since 1933, when they took the gold, they turned in the gold, um, and everything went bankrupt and everything. So the money was actually worth nothing. There's no money of value backing it. It's just paper. But everything else is paper too. Every single thing in the commerce game is paper. Um, so it has value. We know that, but it's not money of value. For example, when somebody goes into a bank for a loan for, say, a house and signs a promissory note, um, that has value. Well, it has the value of the dollar amount, but it has value because of the signature, which means it's backed by our productivity and labor. So the money, it's an IOU. So when you give somebody an IOU, it's a security. It's something to hang on to prove that somebody owes you. Well, let's pretend nobody knows what we know, and what the bank is expecting is money. But there is no money of value. There's only subsequent IOUs. But why should we hand over our cash IOUs when they already have an IOU? And when we see money of value again sometime, then we'll give it to them, except for the fact that they've already sold it and already cleaned up 50 times on that PN. So we don't ever really owe them anything. But thinking of it as most people do, they're simply giving the bank something to say, if I fail on this, you can come after me because it does prove I owe you. And when there's some money, I'll give that to you. But right now there is no money. So giving you my cash will not settle that debt because it has no value. And the other thing is, if they have a security, now wouldn't it be, I remember saying to my father, I said, when you paid off the house, did the bank give you back your promissory note? He said, well, of course they did. And I was stunned by this. But till I remembered that this situation hasn't really escalated until, and I don't know this for certain, but I'm guessing the 70s or 80s. I feel like getting somebody to chime in on this because somebody knows. In other words, it's quite possible that my father did get back that note. I mean, he wasn't nuts at the time he told me. So that's when banks sort of operated honorably. But they won't give you back your promissory note now because, boy, it's long gone that same day. And they've sold it and sold it again. They're making a fortune off it. Then they want our cash. But keep in mind, our cash can't settle that debt. So what's the purpose in stealing our cash? Simply to destroy us. There's no other reason. They've already got enough cash at their disposal, not to mention all our credit. So it's really a nefarious situation. It really is vicious that they're stealing our cash because that's what we use. And it's true we use our credit, but only circuitously through the public service providers, PSPs. So if we go to get a telephone, as soon as you sign anything, whether it's an application or whatever, that's the security, and they go into our account and get it, which means I have circuitous access to it because I'll get a phone and service from it. But when they send a statement that most people think is a bill, that's just madness. And it's a statement of the activity of the account because it lists all the calls and the times and how long you talk. That's for our perusal. We're the benefactor. We like to know what the account's doing. It's our right to know. But there's nothing to pay on that. But they don't like that when you tell them. In fact, here's a typical example. I got phone service from, it's called Lucky Mobile, and it's a subsidiary of Bell. And when I went in to get it, I said, so I'm paying in advance, right? I'll give you $50 right up front. What's that? 2 months service. This is great. So I pay in advance. And if I don't pay, I lose my service. How perfect. That's exactly the way it should be. And then he said, do you have any ID? I said, why would you require ID? What, in case I don't pay? We've already established that if I don't pay, I don't have service. So you know I'm going to be paying in advance. So why did they want ID? Because they're going to go into my credit account and steal who knows how much. And then they want me to pay on top of that? That's madness. Well, it gets even crazier when it's not just $25 a month, right? As soon
Right.
as you asked for ID, they got access to your credit. And you know, then they got paid. And here's the most significant thing, other than you're not the name, the most significant thing to remember is no PSP ever gives us anything without being paid in advance. Think about it. Have you ever gotten anything from a public service provider without paying them in advance? Wittingly or unwittingly, in other words, showing them ID or paying cash? No, absolutely nothing. Now, man to man, like my hairdresser, yeah, I pay her after. But if you're talking about any major company or corporation, so that's the evidence is I wouldn't have the house, I wouldn't have the car, I wouldn't have the credit card, I wouldn't have the university education if it hadn't been prepaid.
Exactly.
Around talking about student loan debt, it makes me want to scream. So
Yeah.
it's just fiction. It's same as a mortgage, same as credit card debt. It's all just fiction. The easiest way to get out of it, though, is not to pay the first bill because then they suspect you know. And if they question, then you say, well, what are you smoking? You know, did you get paid? Here's how I know you got paid is because I got the service or the product. What are you coming to me for? It's a little more difficult down the road. Like 20 years later, somebody says, I'm not paying my mortgage anymore. I've been paying it for a while. So I've learned in the meantime, right?
That's a big issue. And I think a lot of people who have mortgages are having a really difficult time hearing this information that the moment they signed for their mortgage, that it was paid for. And that the banks and the system has just been double dipping and it's been sold and traded. And I think that when people really begin to wake up to this truth, we're going to have a shift, a massive shift in consciousness.
Yeah, it must be very distressing. I never bought a house, but it must be very distressing to people who have just been busting their asses to um, pay their mortgage every month. And they've gotten to the point where they can't. in the second job nonsense. And but here's the thing, be very careful not to tell them you're not going to pay it, because that is almost not counting that it's a heads up. It's also a testing. It looks as if you're testing them. I'm not going to pay my mortgage anymore. Just stop paying it. When you find out you've been swindled, you stop. You don't let them know that, well, I'm not going to be paying you anymore, because no, you just stop. Then you wait for them to say, hey, and that's where you can answer them point by point. But you can't, there's no point in sending them anything. Somebody mentioned it, get the ball rolling. I thought, no, don't do that. Like, don't tell anybody what you're doing until they start bothering you. When they bother you, now you have something to work with.
That
Like,
is
don't
so,
send out all this information that you've accumulated over the years. Oh, I see these letters. I think, oh, is this right? I'm going to send this to my credit card. Don't do anything. Just stop paying them. Now, for things like your phone bill, yes, I speak from experience, you're liable to lose your phone service. Credit card, if you get, and I wouldn't bother with something unless it's sky high and you can't do it anymore. If you are at a point where you can't pay your credit card bill, and you really can't, it's that or feed the kids, then just stop paying it. But just before you do, rack it up to the very epitome. Like, I bought a computer, and I'm talking about just my most recent card, a computer, mattress. That's pretty much it. And then because I knew they were going to pull the card, so I thought, might as well get what I can out of it. And then they bother you a little bit, and then they send it to collections. Well, collections are the easiest ones to deal with. I mean, who didn't think you're telling me I owe over here, but I should pay you? That's just insanity, right? Anyway, this is great fun.
my girlfriend is actually doing exactly what you just said in regards to her mortgage. She hasn't said anything to them, but she's not paying. She's so
Good.
brave.
Yeah, that's good. And only when they gripe, and depending upon, and this is why, no, there's no template. Depending upon what they write,
Right.
then you answer them. You answer their letter. You don't send out stuff saying, I know why. No. Just lie low. And they may not bother her based on what's going on. They may say another one knows. And
Yes.
that could be the end of it. How long has it been?
I do believe it's been about 3 months now. She does have people coming to her door, but she knows not to answer her door.
90 days is usually when they start. At least I think it is. I don't know. Maybe somebody could correct me on that. Where they start saying, "Oh, you're in arrears. You haven't paid for 3 months." Uh-huh.
Mhm.
But you have to really know what it is they're saying before
Yes.
you can answer them.
Yes. Yeah. She's been studying this for a while. I'm actually going to be interviewing her in the new year.
Oh, that'll be great if she
Yeah,
still has a place to live. I'm kidding, of
I
course.
know. Exactly.
If she's still alive. No, no, listen, if you don't hear from me for a while, I want you to know I am not suicidal.
I think we're
No.
all divinely protected, Mary. It's our time. I think this is all happening for us to really step into our power. And I think that they're waiting for us to step into our power. It's like, what was it? Bill Turner in New Zealand, he was in court and he was going against what the judge was so used to, everyone honoring him. And Bill was very respectful. But by the end of the session, he said that he wanted to dismiss because there was no victim, there's no claim here.
No
And
contract.
exactly, no contract. And the judge walked off the bench, went to the door and turned around and bowed to him. He said, they're waiting for us to step into our power.
I think that's accurate. In fact, it's funny you mentioned Bill because just today I emailed him and said, "Are you all right? I haven't heard from you for a while." Yes, he has been apparently not too well lately,
Mm.
um, and the reason I emailed him is because I had come across his blurb on mortgages. Now we know that he's in New Zealand, but he gave a ripping great, and of course it just made me do this. This is so convoluted, unbelievably convoluted, because we know we should be able to go into a bank, say, "Hi, will you lend me some money?" Well, that depends. Here, Phil, do the application, yeah, you're approved. Okay, so here, complete this promissory note. Now we know that there's nothing to pay back on that, but let's pretend we don't know. So we hand them the note saying, "Yes, I'll pay you out of my weekly paycheck. I'll pay you." Now, but for that note, which has the value of the house, I'm guessing, right then and there, the bank should write a check either to me or to the vendor, the fellow from whom I'm buying the house. It should be very simple. The vendor and I have already discussed it. I want this house. This is the house I want. This is the price. Lend it to me. Okay, send him the check. You got the note. He got the check. I get the house. What more is there? Listen to Bill Turner's description of what's going on behind it. I could never figure out why a mortgage company would be involved, or why an attorney would be necessary. All we need is the vendor and I, we need a witness. That's the real estate agent, isn't it? He's
Yes,
standing there, okay,
exactly.
we've agreed on this price, write it down. Okay, now I'll take that paper, you take a copy, I'll take it over to the bank, I'll get the loan, you'll get the check, I get the house, we're done. How in hell does somebody say, "I have a mortgage"? I've honestly never understood it. Go to YouTube, type in Bill Turner, and and just look for banks. Well, but this particular video it's over 20 years old, but I think he's spot on. Of course, it applies to New Zealand, but still, it's just mind-boggling. I mean, I remember I wrote him and I said, "This is just unbelievably complicated." But isn't that the whole point of the game? Make it
Yes.
so complicated that people fall for and that's another thing I noticed, that so many people thought that they should learn all this complication. And it's just not necessary if you know who you are. That's the only thing you need to know. Let them play their complicated games. Let I always think the attorneys are just sitting back howling with laughter, saying, "Oh, they fell for the authenticate the birth certificate," as if Ontario's going to send me a fake birth certificate, have it authenticate. It's already authentic. And if it
That's
isn't, that's their problem, not mine.
so
I
true.
mean, but that was my favorite one. It was the authenticate the. Are you kidding? You did that? What'd that cost you? But the attorneys are sitting around laughing. Okay, let's tell them this, and they'll all spread the word. It's all nonsense.
Yes, yes. We talk about all of these topics in our private member meetings on Tuesday night, and we remind people to start small, start with the credit cards. Well,
Call that small. I would
I mean,
call.
instead of a mortgage.
Oh, I got you. Yeah, right. Yeah, don't you can lose a credit card, but don't lose the house.
Yes, yes.
I say court is easy because, well, just don't go. But you better tell. Now, that's an instance where you have to tell them you're not going to be there. Otherwise, they'll come after you because you didn't go to court, because they think that you have to be in court. So you really have to say, "I won't be in court because," well, you don't even start it like that. That's not how to start that letter. Um, I start almost every letter with, "I'm the benefactor for the Croft Mary E account held at the public trust. And as such, I have the right to open any mail addressed to that trust/trustee because I have a right to know the activity of the account. Lest you think I am the trustee," and then I outline about 4 things. I think I put that in my most recent thing. "Just so you know, I'm not the trustee." But it would be fun to sort of go to court and just listen to it all. And where's the trustee?
Right, right. I know in your book, you talk about sending a series of letters that request the bank to provide you with three things like validation of the debt, like actual accounting, verification of their claim against you, a copy of the contract, etc.
I stick it to them a little harder than that. Yeah, but prove to me, yeah, prove your claim. You say I owe, prove it.
Yes,
In other words, the shorter you keep it,
exactly.
it's more compact and therefore more information. Drag it out, it starts to look like you don't know what you're talking about. I
Thank you
keep
for
all my
that.
letters to one page. If it goes more than that, I know I'm not sure about what I'm saying.
Good. I love
Snug
that,
it up,
Mary.
snug it up.
And that you're happy to pay any financial obligation that you lawfully owe as soon as you receive these documents.
Yeah, but I would say, but if you truly believe I owe, send me a bill.
Right.
Signed bill. Leave it within 3 weeks. I put the date in. Then we'll know. Number one, you won't put your name to any fraudulent demand. Number two, clearly I owe nothing. I got 3 or 4 of those, just in other words, if you, and that it's fraud and you're um, trying to get, you're trying to coerce me into being something I'm not, or you're commingling the name with me or the account with me. There's a few things you can run by them on all
There's
that.
full disclosure, we're not being told that we're creating the credit with our signature.
All that's true. All that's true. It's just as I said, just like to make it a little harsher. That just
I
sounds
love
so
your attitude.
polite, So you know what it sounds like? It sounds like polite legalese.
Right, right.
No, I don't do that. Just speak English, and they better bloody know my language.
I guess we can even go into a more simplified uh, aspect would be those credit cards that people are really wanting to discharge, but parking and traffic tickets, that's another big one as well.
Oh, they're easy. Yeah,
Yeah.
they're easy. A year ago in the summer, I dumped a $90 parking ticket. And just this past summer, it was 250. But again, I tell them who I am, and I know that they charged the account almost before I ever got the ticket. So we know they get paid within, what, 3 days? Um, and how could I ever owe a legal fiction? They're presuming I'm going to pay. Well, I don't have anything to do with this, and I can't owe, or I can't even contract with a legal fiction. My account can, but I can't. So if the account owes, have at it. You've already gotten paid from it. That was easy. Well, so I wrote the town pretty much that again. But if after reading this, in other words, my cash can't settle your credit debt to the account, but if you still think I owe, send me a signed bill. Nobody's going to sign a bill because that's fraud. Well, not that they're not already fraudulent, but that's blatant. I mean, that's more, they're not going to put a signature to that. Yeah, because then you run it into court and you say, have him prove his claim, and it just gets dragged out, and they know it. But then the province got involved. Oh, because it wasn't paid in 90 days. It's kind of a strange story. But anyway, then the province got involved, said, here's a court date. I thought, well, now I have to be a little cagey here because I will not go into Calgary to go to court. The point is, yeah, I wrote pretty much the same letter again. No news is good news. If you don't get a response, then you know you're right. Because if they respond, they can't say you're wrong because they'd have to prove it then, wouldn't they? And they can't. And
Right.
they can't say you're right or it's over for them. So no
Mhm.
response means you're right on.
Yes,
So what are
yes.
we up to? So we're up to a month now. I don't think they're going to bother me.
No, I don't think so either. Good. And again, I'm glad that you mentioned not going to court. We've been saying that at Life First Canada for quite some time. And, you mentioned too, the only reason any matter ever goes to court is because the officers of the court know that at some point, you will unwittingly grant them jurisdiction.
Well, that's it. You turn up, then they now know that you don't know who you are.
Exactly.
Because the
Yeah.
king wouldn't go to court. He'd send somebody else or he'd say, buzz off.
Yeah.
Somebody wrote, always go to court. Why? Why waste my time? Well, unless, of course, you're going to charge for your time. I'll be at court on that date. How long might it be? Remember, I charge 1 gold maple leaf per hour of my time. That's
Yes.
the only circumstance under which you go to court. Then they discourage you from coming.
Exactly. Here's my fee schedule.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, in your book, you write there is no law compelling you to pay tax on your income. We interviewed Jurgen Marx. I'm not just sure. Do you know who Jurgen Marx is? He's from Winnipeg, and we interviewed him this year, and he's 83. He's such an adorable man, and he stated the same thing, that Canada Revenue is an offshore foreign corporation. So can you tell us more about what you know about CRA?
Yes, I know that it's an offshore, but again, that's one of those things. There might be a law, but they don't apply to me.
Exactly.
That's what they'd have to prove. And as I mentioned recently, this is 25 years ago, oh, more than that, nearly 30 years ago, when I was stopped by the cops and I said, show me the law that says I have to have a driver license. So he quoted it, I think, and said, all operators must be licensed. Well, I didn't know the meaning of operators back then. What I should have said is, now prove I'm an operator. Because I'm not driving a bus or a cab or an airplane or a car. I'm not driving a car. So, but as I say, that was nearly 30 years ago. So there's no law that applies to us. Every single piece of legislation applies to legal fictions, persons.
Yes. Citizens. I'm trying to
I
get
thought
people
you
to
said,
stop saying the word citizen.
you said citizens. I thought you said husbands, and I thought, well, yeah, them too.
I know you wrote in your book a story getting back to uh, so this is not CRA but the IRS in the federal court, and it was a pilot, and you said that she won because she had documented that she had continually asked the IRS to provide the law compelling her to pay tax on her income, and that they failed to respond. And so the judge said case dismissed. I love that. Yeah, you
Yeah,
said that her affidavits proved that they had defaulted, so the judge ruled in her favor. And then you said something about a man in BC, here in Canada, who did the same thing, and CRA failed to respond to 3 of his letters, and because they failed to respond, that they dishonored him, and the judge declared case dismissed as well.
I mentioned this recently and I won't get into all the details, but this was a telephonic appearance in court. And I didn't know how it was going to go, but my friend, I said, first of all, let him know who you are. I'm the benefactor. So he only said a couple of words before he said, I'm the benefactor. I wrote this, I know I did. And the judge just went ballistic. He said, well, I don't even know what a benefactor is. I thought, well, then you shouldn't be a judge if you don't know what that is. And then I guess they got on to somebody else. Or anyway, finally, he said, who's the trustee who failed in his fiduciary duty to settle the accounting? And that's when he was clicked off. He was muted.
Mm.
Well, all that tells you is he was right on. And the judge didn't want anybody hearing that.
We have quite a few questions in the chat. Someone's asking, so how are we meant to be buying a house? Exactly what Mary said earlier.
Well, you mean how can we buy a house? Yeah. I'm first to say here, I've never done it. But I'm telling you, go listen to Bill Turner. Holy jumping. And I'm sure it hasn't changed. I'm sure he's still accurate, even though it's over 20 years old. I wondered why he looked so young. He's my age. But anyway,
Great.
oh, good. That's an old video. Um, how to buy a house. You mean really how to buy it? You fall for their nonsense and then not pay. But what I would like to do, which I did years ago, not about a house, but just about a loan, I went in and said, just walk me through this. Like, how do I get, say, $10,000? Well, first you apply, and then we let you know if you qualify. And I said, okay, so then I say I want $10,000. And she said, yeah, so then you sign this. And I said, yeah. And I said, and then you give me $10,000, right? She said, well, we wouldn't hand it over. I said, why not? It's not that much money. Just go get $10,000 and hand it to me. I have a security guard outside waiting for me. And she said, no, what we would do is write you a check. And I said, you'd write me a check. Why? And she said, well, we just don't hand you cash right here. And I said, so what I do with the check? She said, yeah, you go over to the teller and they'll cash it for you. I said, then they'll give me $10,000. She said, yeah. I said, well, here's an idea. You go over to the teller and get the $10,000. Or you take the check. No, why did they want to give me a check? Because when I endorse it, they've got another security. So it's like sign, 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 sign. So how would I do it now if I could? I wouldn't be able to get away with it, of course, but I'd walk in, say, this is the house I want, kind of like what I described. This is the house I want. I brought the vendor and the real estate agent with me. We've all agreed this is what I'm going to pay. So what do you want me to do? Well, sign this note. I guess they'd want warning or something. I don't know. Sign this note. So I would, and then I would say, I just gave you a security. You give him the check, and we're all square. And that's how simple it should be.
Yes,
Boy, they'd
exactly.
get rid of me but fast, wouldn't they?
Well, I know that there's a man in the United States, his name is Mansa, and they're teaching people in the United States how to get free vehicles, and they're doing exactly what you just said, and they're getting them. So it's working. We Canadians were a little bit behind.
I gotta tell you, I went over to Ford, a few years back, and I said, walk me through this, because I've never bought a new car either. Um, he said, well, first you find the car you want. I said, okay, that one. Now what? And he said, uh, I'd say, well, I'm asking you what the price is. He said, well, then he handed me this paper and it said offer to purchase. I said, I'm not offering anything. You're offering me a car. I'm accepting. Now, what you do is you give me the key, you get it cleaned up, and you present me with a bill. Then I pay it. When I pay it, you give me a receipt. That's how it works. He says, I'm an accountant and I know how it works. I thought, see, he really thinks that I have to offer to purchase.
Right.
That's just really weird to me. And it made me think of Jack Smith years ago. He said, have you ever listened to the radio? This is back in radio days. Have you ever listened to the radio on a Saturday morning or something, you'll hear the car ads. We've got this car, we got this car, come on down and make us an offer. He said, why would we make an offer? They're the ones offering the cars. What we do is if we accept the offer, then they provide what we've accepted. Then they give us a bill, then we pay it, and then they give us a receipt. That's how it works. It's 6 steps. And wouldn't it be great if all the counter trolls knew this information? We know that the execs know, or at least the CFO and the CEO and probably the VP, etc. But they've got all their workers, talk about the pyramid, eh? They've got all their workers just do as you're told. Well, this woman came in and said, yeah, never mind her. And I often think what happened to some of the letters that I've written to oh, let's just say, the collection agents.
Mhm.
And, somebody read it and said, well, what in hell? And the legal department, like when I signed back that first ticket a year or two ago, I wrote to the woman who was communicating with, and she handed it to legal, and legal just said, oh, we'll handle her. Yeah, they handled me all right by just dumping it and not saying anything else. So
Mhm.
that's how nobody else knows. Wouldn't it be great if that woman to whom I was writing, if she knew you?
Mhm.
We don't accept that. We accept only credit card, debit card, cash, check, not even check. And I just said, so you're refusing my payment? That's in violation of UCC 63603. It says, payment tendered in honor and refused is debt discharged. And I've used that a couple of times. And I never had to pay for small things. Well, we don't take that. We don't take cash. Oh, perfect.
You've been using the UCC in Canada.
No, the only thing I use it for is below my signature, comma, benefactor for the account, and I put UCC 1308
Okay,
after
very
that.
good.
And that's just a shorter way of all rights reserved. It's not a big deal. But no, the UCC 3603 is payment tendered in honor and refused is debt discharged. Talk about a win. I was trying to get out of Calgary Airport once and they wouldn't let me use cash. And I just said, cash is what I got. They even had the gall to say, well, don't you have a friend whose credit card? I mean, could you phone your friend and get a card? I said, oh, you're a riot, Alice. So I just said, no. So now I'm not paying anything. Let me out. And she did. But at that point, it must have cost a lot because it took me a while to get out. Oh, well, out of the parking lot. I mean,
Right, right. Let's talk about the credit bureau.
well, they're about as fraudulent as the next guy, right? Because they believe without checking, no verification. Somebody writes them, like Visa card people, they write them and say that somebody like me is has bad credit because I didn't pay them. So what you want to do is write to these people and say, did you get verification of this? No, did you just believe them? What they're really saying to you is she didn't fall for our deceiving her out of her cash. That's really the issue. She wouldn't give us her cash. Well, did you get paid? Well, we got paid from the credit account, but we're not telling anybody that. So if I did that's extortion, and that is fraud, and that is it's also trafficking in persons, and which is slavery. So they're angry that, all the banks and everybody, they're angry when we don't hand over our cash. And we're never under any obligation to hand them our cash after we've given them access to untold millions of our credit. So why would we give them our cash? But when we don't, they give us a bad credit rating, which makes things like, so I hear anyway, renting, getting jobs. In other words, too many people are using the credit reporting bureau because they think there's something honest about them. So I've even considered, well, before you even go job hunting, just say, I want you to know this about these twits. So don't bother writing. Well, are they going to fall for that? No, they're going to say, oh, you got a bad rating. So, um, but I'm in the midst, honest to God, right now as we speak, in writing TransUnion, Experian, and Equifax, and saying, you fell for their fraud, and you're a party to this fraud. And you're lying about whether people have good or bad credit, or pardon me, about bad credit, because everybody has unlimited credit. So how dare you? You're a party to a fraud. And try to think what else I write to them. But just stick it with them and let them know that this has to stop. They're destroying people's lives. I have heard people have trouble renting a place to live. Well, nobody can afford to buy a place to live anymore. So they're renting and they can't get a place because, well, you got a bad credit rating. If only you knew, what that's all about. So,
Hmm. Thank you, Mary. Now,
yeah,
I
what
know there's quite a few people here who are amazing men and women here that are hearing this information for the first time, and it can be overwhelming. We do recommend that you join our private member group. We talk about these subjects in detail, and in the new year, absolutely. Mary, let's talk about the children because I think this is really important. I know you talk about it in your book in regards to the education system. We're always reminding parents to step out of the public school system. But yeah, you have a big concern in regards to children.
children, yeah, don't send them to school. For God's sake, don't send them to, well, anywhere. Doctors, yeah, oh, maybe that was it. Yeah, doctors, because as soon as you send them anywhere, whether it's for religious training, school, doctor, what else? Then they know, and this is Joseph Chilton Pierce in his book Magical Child. He said children think their parents are it. So when you start telling them there's authorities out there, we lose
Yes.
our authority. And that means because they aspire to be like us, if we've lost our authority by sending them to doctors and at church and, well, then where they start out knowing they can be like us, well, now that might not be such a good idea because my mother's no good at treating me, treating my illness or educating me or teaching me spiritually. So I don't know if I want to be like mom. I think
Yes.
that's my biggest gripe is we got to do it ourselves. So be prepared. And if you're going
Yes.
to have children, be prepared.
We have a fear of authority now because we grew up with that programming to look outside of ourselves.
That's the other thing is people actually say, my doctor told me to do this. What did your divine self tell you?
Yes, exactly. And we fear judges and we fear lawyers, we fear the court because people are programmed to watch television. And because we're watching those law shows and we believe what's happening in those shows, then that programming stays with us.
I know. I often thought, wouldn't it be fun to make a movie and create all the scenes where in the original movie we lose because of the judge or because of the doctor or because of the church or and change those scenes.
Yeah,
Change it so that it all gets turned around and then put that movie out like all these clips. Remember that movie? Well, here's really the way it should have gone.
I love that. Okay, in the chat, Pam, thanks, Pam, for sharing this. Someone in Calgary last week had their mortgage discharged in court and given $1 million to keep quiet.
Okay, I was just going to say who was that, but oh darn, she was paid to keep quiet. That sounds like extortion, doesn't it? Or
Yeah,
bribery. Is that bribery?
exactly, right. Pam, do you want to just unmute yourself?
Sure. Yeah, it is definitely true. We spoke to the person that attended in court with them. That's what happened. And it did not happen in the courtroom.
No, of course not.
It happened outside in another building, like off of the court.
In chambers?
No, not in
No?
chambers, outside in a coffee shop.
Oh, that's hysterical.
It's pretty cool. And there's another one that this person is attending with to discharge $1 million mortgage in the next week. I think it was that he told me. I've got to ask him that again. But this one was an $800,000 mortgage and $1 million cash to keep quiet.
Terrific. But she did go to court on it, eh?
Yes, but
Or was she
it,
dragged to court on it?
that I'm not sure of that part. I'd have to get
Like
clarity on
who
that.
filed the claim? Who was the alleged plaintiff? Yeah, good to know.
So it's obviously happening.
I may need to connect you with my friend.
Yeah, exactly. Hey?
The best I came up with, and I obviously whatever your friend is doing is way better. It's the best I could come up with was writing the bank an invoice and saying pay up or else. And of course, my sad thinking of that is what judge is going to honor that? But now you've got me thinking. So they're not going to pay, of course. Well, then maybe we ought to be taking that into court. This, I simply want back what was stolen from me. I sent them an invoice. They didn't acknowledge it, dragged them in. And maybe, since this is happening, and I'm guessing either you don't know or you know and can't tell exactly what these people did, that might be a way to do it, is wait for them to ignore an invoice and take them to court. I don't like the idea of doing that, but if it works.
I know the guy that is advising them and going to court with them is asking for a certified copy of the mortgage, which we know they can't provide. And that's where they're getting them.
That is good. Yeah, it's long gone. That's really funny. I'm telling you that video by Bill Turner is just a mind boggler. It just unbelievable that anybody would fall for any of this. That's the thing.
Yes, I think I've seen that one that you're talking about where he's mentioning how you have a mortgage for 500,000 and then of course we have interest and it's about 300,000 and they go to the window, the depository window, and they give you your original 500,000 that you are asking for in the offer, but they keep the 300,000 in interest of 25 years or so, and then they're selling and trading on the stock market or something. It's so crazy.
Buying and selling securities is one thing. Reissuing of securities is the biggest crime on earth and the most unreported. Okay, when I say biggest crime, I don't mean worst crime. I mean
Yeah.
most in numbers.
People are waking up to it, and I think this is why this is happening with what Pam shared. Mortgages are getting discharged. So I think the more people that say yes to moving through the learning process of this, we always recommend everyone take about a year to learn the process and then start to take action from that place.
Oh, this is good. This is good. Okay, I'm happier now. Just knowing, just if just a few people get under the wire, Now, but offered $1 million not to tell anybody. Gee, this sounds interesting.
Yeah,
Not to
apparently it's happening in the United States and they're signing NDAs and then we don't hear anything about them at all. But yeah.
That's pretty funny because it'd be pretty easy to overcome. Simply write it down and send it to somebody, registered mail. You send it to a few people and it'll just mushroom out and it'll just look like, yeah, like as long as there's nothing pertinent in it. I always figured it'd be easy to overcome all those, but they're not going to take a chance. And by the way, what happens if they do tell? What, they take back the $1 million? I mean, really? I don't know if I could sell my integrity, my ethics for $1 million. I think I'd say, no, I don't think I want the million. I'm going to tell everybody.
I'm going to share all this information.
I'm going to tell everybody I know. So sorry about the $1 million. No, I don't want it. What would they do then? Maybe kill me.
Exactly. Christoph, I'm just going to get to you in a moment here, but someone was asking about rent. I highly recommend, I think it was Katika and Laura. Yes, you can actually discharge your rent. So if you Google Mansa, it's MANSA, he has quite a few videos on YouTube in regards to rent. It has to be commercial companies though. It can't be someone like a man or woman that you're renting a house from. Like for myself, I'm renting from a lovely woman who's living in Korea right now. I could never do that to her. So this is where if you are renting from a commercial company, yes, there is a process that you do not have to pay rent, and Mansa does not pay rent. So it is working. So that's what I highly recommend. Christoph, you have a question?
It's actually for a friend in England. She is going through right now. She's going through an eviction, and I've kind of been helping her for the last 5 years, but she's in a position that she's not mentally capable of taking on board this information, even though I helped her with the court deposition or whatever it was called, where the court was asking whether she felt that she owed the money. And I filled it in for her and said no. Now they didn't go down that road. The lawyer for the bank basically went after her, and she is going to be evicted either this week or next week. So even though the house is on offer, someone's actually wanting to buy it, they're still wanting to throw her out. Is there anything that can be done to prevent them taking possession, even at this later stage?
You know, I don't know. I haven't gotten as far as eviction, because yeah, like usually you can preempt that. And so you're saying somebody's actually offered to buy the house.
The bank is still wanting to get her out of the house, even though she's got an offer for purchase.
What's their rationale?
I don't know. I'm in Canada, she's in England,
Isn't this
and she's not in a place to be able to mentally handle this information.
so you kind of have to write something for her, eh?
Yeah,
If she can't really speak for herself, see that, boy, that would be probably the question to the bank is, what is it you really want? What is it you really want? You want the money? Well, so really, payment tendered in honor and refused is debt discharged. That's something. In other words, she's offered them the money from the sale, which she can do, right?
yeah, yes.
But they refused it.
Interesting point. Yeah.
That might be it.
That's a very good point.
I found your book just amazing.
Oh, thanks.
Thank
Yeah.
you. Yeah.
I sort of think that might be the best approach. I've offered you the money from the sale of the house, use a number, and you've refused. Debt discharged. Somebody might say something to the effect of, yeah, UCC doesn't apply in Britain. That's fiction. It's a commercial law, and there's
Yeah.
commerce worldwide. In other words, I get exasperated when people say, yeah, but does that apply here? It's commerce. Do you have
Yes.
commerce in England? So that's what came to me when you asked. I just said,
Okay, thank you, and I'll pass that on. Thank you.
yeah.
Thanks, Mary. That was great. What is your website?
Debtdischargeservices.com.
Did you hear that, everyone? Dischargeservices.com. We can learn from so many amazing men and women, and that's what Lifers Canada is all about. We're here to share knowledge and pass it on, because the more people wake up to the game, the monopoly game that Mary's talking about, the more we take back our power.
Now, there is one other site that I have, which is a you have to have the login for it. But I don't want to kind of hijack what Mary is doing here. But the website is called zz11.org.
Can you
And
put
if
that
you just
in the
if you
chat?
just go there, you'll actually see in my number plate on my car, it's not your regular number plate. But if anyone wants to have access to that, just email me, because there's an email link on that website.
Excellent. If you could put the information in the chat, that'd be great.
Yep, sure.
This has been great, Mary. I know that everyone is just breathing in all of this incredible knowledge. It's so important for us to know. Pam, what is your question? Can you clarify?
Yeah, so Mary, I thought I heard, and maybe there's way too much going on, but I thought I heard you say that you could just write a check to the CRA and make it payable to blank.
No, what I said was that Blackburn, who happened to be the Minister of National Revenue in 09, said the CRA will also accept a check written in accordance with the Bills of Exchange Act. Well, a check is essentially a bill of exchange. So
Right.
what he was getting at, of course, was turn the bill that you get from CRA into a check. That means it's a bill of exchange, and sign it back to them. Not a
Okay.
check written on your bank account, but
Right. Okay,
turn the bill into a check according to the Bills of Exchange Act. And there you go, because that's all they want is your
right.
signature, your authorization for them to go and get it from your credit.
Okay, perfect. Thank you
Yeah.
for clarifying.
Thank you, Pam. So I recommend that anyone here that's not signed up as a free member or a private member at LifeFirst Canada, I highly recommend you do lifefirstcanada.ca. We send out a newsletter once a week with the replay and all the contact information. And of course, we'll send out Mary's books again as well. If you have not read her books, I know there's quite a few questions in the chat too, and I do believe that her books will answer your questions as well. So
You're
that's
referring to the second one or the first? The second one's tighter. The first one, I go all over the place with health and spirituality, and
I love your first one.
it's funny. I know it's funny. But it depends on what they're looking for. If they're just looking for to
Yes,
get
the
it into
second
their
one.
skull, you know. Yeah.
Yes.
And also send out the legislation and also the other 2 pages that I sent you. I want to be really clear that I'm sure a lot of people are listening saying, no, 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 no. In other words, they've got their own ideas. I would never say that somebody else's ideas aren't working. Clearly they are. In other words, many people have prevailed on many fronts. I'm just saying it's way simpler than that. But if it's work, boy, I never fight with what works. Boy, you tell me what works, I'm on it. It's just that I've noticed that over the years, people have just gotten so convoluted and detailed and so much time and energy and expense and everything. And it's just, it's enough to take you down. But whatever works, yeah, do it. I'm just trying to tighten it up and lighten it up and just make it not so complicated. And I still say, if you know who you are, you just don't tangle with these guys. You lay down the law because we're it.
Yes, we are it. Thank you,
Yeah.
Mary. Yes, there is one of my mentors, Drumvello, he shared a story about when he was in Egypt and he was with a couple of other people on a spiritual quest and they noticed this really large boulder in the distance and it had writing on it. So he asked what was written on this large boulder. And the guide said to him, it was the children that live in the town, and they went and wrote on this big, massive boulder, if it's not simple, it simply is not done. That's the children.
Close to mine. I say if it isn't simple, it isn't accurate.
Yeah, love it. Aaron, go ahead.
But it simply is, that's good.
Well, I'd like to say that you've taken a lot of the complications out of this whole process just by, well, yeah, it's so good because all this over the last couple of years, I've been diving into what we're doing here, and it's you have to do this, you have to do that, and it's got to be all these different processes that you've just mentioned in your second book, and go, oh my God, it's all this. It's like this. It sounds like we're jumping into exactly what we don't want to do. So, but here I'm going to throw a question at you now, which is kind of along those lines, and it's this: when you're saying if we, like in the Bills of Exchange Act, the Moz was talking about in Section 25, that you can, at your discretion, use from a fictitious corporation, company, that you turn that into a note. You can accept it as a bill, or you can turn it and convert it into a note. Okay, obviously that's a choice you want to make. So something that's going to be, say, CRA, which was the example you were giving, with this other guy from CRA saying, or you can just pay it with a check, and according to the Bills of Exchange Act. So that being, they're going to want to take it from what I understand is they're going to want to take it from a particular account. So would we use our social insurance number?
That's the account. Yeah.
Yeah, so we would
As far
use
as I
that.
know. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's because because there's been some dialogue back and forth about what number you use. The number that account number on the back of your birth certificate. Okay, but then on the other hand, you've got the social insurance number, which is the tracking number of your account. So
Yeah.
I'm just wanting to know, that's my question is you would use that, right? Your social insurance number, and it would be without or with the dashes, right?
I wouldn't, I just do straight numbers. I don't bother. They can figure it out.
Yeah.
It's not my job. I
Or is
just.
or is it again, we're getting into the semantics of it too much and it's getting to be just, too stupid
That's
again.
just it. Yeah, and make sure you just sign on the diagonal on a stamp. It has
Yeah,
to be-
yeah,
Oh
all
my
that.
God.
Yeah. Oh, I know. It's over and over. It's all this stuff, blue ink, red ink, black ink. It's just
Oh
like,
yeah, and purple if you're royal. Yeah.
oh, absolutely.
Yeah. Now, where are you? Are you in the States? Something you said just
No,
made.
I'm in Alberta, down in Nobleford.
Oh,
Yeah.
something you said made me wonder. Now, what did you say? About well, maybe did you read my second book where I say that when I accepted Serb,
Oh,
uh,
yeah.
yeah. Now, did you hear that story? When I accepted Serb, and it was on the advice of a friend who does taxes for people, and I said, but I'm on a pension, and she said, doesn't matter, do it. Hey, what's the worst that can happen? I said, well, you're right. They'll try and get it back from me, which they won't be able to do. So I did, and about a year later, they said, I'm snugging it up. They said you didn't qualify, so you have to send us. So then I got an assessment, a remittance voucher that said 17,000 on it. And so just on a whim, I thought, oh, I'll just sign it back to him. I'll just sign it back, and there you go. You can have your 17,000 from my credit account. Well, then I got another one. I said, "Oh, so I wrote to, whoops, there, what's his name? Yeah, Bob Hamilton." And I said, "Look, I happen to know you got the first. It wasn't 17. It might have been $15,000
Yeah, I think it
dollars."
was 17, you said. Yeah, you got the first one. How come you're looking for another 17?
Well, I said I got it was my acceptance of that authorized you to go into my account to get the 15 or whatever it was. And then you had the gall to send me another remittance. So I sent you another payment, 17. So I know you went into my account to get that. Do you think I'm going to fall for this again? And I said, you owe me $17,000 now. So no, I'm not going to fall for your second remittance vouchers. I never heard from him again. So I really think that when they know, they just stop. Now, the question really gets down to, do we just want to be left alone or do we want to go after them? I think the best way to go after them is just to let them know you're not going to be bothering me anymore. And I think that hurts them even more than going after them because now they know we're all onto them. Like the
Mhm.
more people who say, nice try, they're going to say, our days are numbered. But if you start taking them to court when you know the judge is on their side, oh, here we go. It's like, is it
Yeah.
worth my time and money and expense and attention and everything? So I'm not so interested in going after them unless it's as simple as an invoice. Do I expect them to pay me? No. Do I want to go to court over it? No. But it does let them know that I know they owe me.
Mhm.
But gee, something you said. Oh, I know. When you said about the sin, you got to remember whenever anybody asks for ID, what they really want is your sin, but they're not allowed to ask for a sin. And I put that in my book. I said, when somebody knows your sin, they can attack your account. I didn't quite know what I was talking about back then. But so then they said they stopped putting sins on checks and they stopped like credit card offers. They used to say, what's your sin? No, they don't do that anymore. But if you give them a name and a date of birth, they can find it immediately. So that's how you know that that's what they want. They want the sin. So the account name is the name and the account number is the sin.
Okay.
So it's pretty
Mhm.
simplistic. And so anything that you sign back, you don't even have to write accepted. You don't, I mean, everybody's got all these, oh, when you do this, no, you just sign it. but I would always sign by Mary, benefactor for Croft, Mary E., and then UCCY. In other words, if I've made a mistake, oh darn, but then nobody's going to come after us for doing that. As I say, the worst that I got was, well, we don't accept that. Oh darn, too bad, because now I owe you nothing. So
Thanks,
there.
Aaron. Great question.
Well, thanks for your time here tonight, and
Oh, I love it.
yeah, me too, very, very much. I appreciate it greatly.
The certainty is in who we are.
Mhm.
Well, it seems like when you hit that note of truth, it rings true and you know it. And that's just what I recognize right here.
Yeah, we're the benefactor. We're the ones who credit that account. And Canada Inc. cannot operate without us. They need us. We don't need them because somebody else can give us what we need. But they desperately need those credit accounts. We're the benefactor. We're the ones who put the securities into that account. So
Yeah.
Thanks, Aaron. I just wanted to mention in regards to the different ink that people are using, red ink, blue ink, whatever. I remember David Straight saying that stop thinking that this is a ritual. It's only because we want them to see and identify that you have written something on here. It was so good. Everyone's asking about CUSIP numbers in regards to the birth certificate. What is your thoughts in regards to,
the what on the birth certificate?
yeah,
CUSIP?
yeah.
You know, I was going to say about 20 minutes ago, I was going to say, here's another thing I don't understand or can't get hold of, or I've heard a lot of people mention it, but I don't know what it is. I don't know where to find it, and I don't know what good it is. So if somebody knows, please let me know.
In regards to CUSIP?
Yeah, I don't know what CUSIP is. I mean, I know it's at their end, and you have to sort of get into their whatever that is in order to get it. But what good
It's
for
an
anybody? I
it's
don't
an
know.
acronym, Mary. It's an acronym
No.
for Committee on Uniform Security Identification Procedures.
Yeah, I do know that. I just don't know what to do about it. I mean, I
Yeah.
could have said that, but yeah.
I think a
So-
lot of people are using, or they're sending in to get the information on their bond, on the value of their trust, right? And because then they can prove that, yes, it's not just a conspiracy theory.
Well, we know that it's no longer a theory,
Exactly, reality.
it's proven.
It's Cynthia
Um,
Karen. Another way to say that is the CUSIP number proves the securitization of your birth certificate.
Yes.
Follows what you
Right.
just said, that because people are saying it's conspiracy birth certificate. What are you talking about? It's not real. I mean, these are people in banks and other places saying it, but the CUSIP number is the evidence that it actually it is securitized.
where did you find this CUSIP number, though?
Some people are
Um,
sending in their birth certificate registration number, some are sending in the SIN number.
Don't
to-
think so. John, where's the CUSIP number?
Sorry, what was that?
For some people, Mary, it's on the back of their birth certificates, and some people it's not. I'm not sure why that is.
Okay, yeah, in the States, it's on the back of the SIN card, and here it's, okay, that's what I want to know, is that they start with a letter, and then there's 9 digits, correct? So
Yeah.
that's the CUSIP number. But now, my question is, I mean, that doesn't surprise me, I've heard this. Like, now what? What do I do with this number? I've heard many suggestions.
Comment on this, Karen?
Yeah, absolutely, go ahead.
The CUSIP number, whatever you do, your driver's license has a CUSIP number on it. When you buy a car, it's registered, you have a CUSIP number on it. When you go to university and you make application, everything has a CUSIP number attached to it. And it's bundled and traded, and you might, by the time you're 60 years old, you might have 60, 70 CUSIP numbers. And this is just generating wealth for you in your account, and it goes all into your CRA account or your social insurance number account. And it's accumulation of everything you do during your lifetime. Your marriage certificate will have a CUSIP number on it. Everything has a CUSIP number attached to it. When you
Good
get
to
we get a parking ticket, the parking ticket will have a CUSIP number. A speeding ticket will have a CUSIP number. When you go to court, it'll have a CUSIP number. That is how they track us, and that is how they generate billions of dollars. And if you go to certain brokers, and you can't do it anymore in Canada but we're traded through Fidelity, Flex, whatever, but in the States, it's easier to find how much. For example, you ask, this is my birth certificate, not your birth registration, because that's a free sovereignty. Your birth certificate, and then you ask the broker to say, okay, find the CUSIP number and how much is attached to the CUSIP number. And for example, my birth certificate, it's 1.9 billion. And for example, my social insurance number is like 506 million. That's just two CUSIP numbers. And then you've got all your degrees at university, that's all CUSIP. When you started collecting them when you're not 16, because in 16 you get your social insurance number, usually you get your driver's license usual. So those will have larger denominations of money.
Thanks, Karen. Appreciate you sharing.
Wait, now that's great to know. And yes, I've heard this. I've even looked up mine. So what? What do I do with it? Like, I mean, really, I don't know the value of knowing what.
The value of knowing it is that, yes, you can go and pay off your $1 million home, because you've got 60 million from your for example, marriage certificate. Know that there are hundreds, maybe and millions of dollars in this. So what's the value of it? The value is that you have the freedom and ease of mind without fear to know that you can not just pay off a $10,000 credit card, but you can go and buy a $2 million ranch if you want, and it'll be paid off.
Right. But we're still facing the same, stop me where I'm wrong. We're still facing the same problem. In other words, I'm saying that too, but like a much shorter version. I just also happen to know that we have billions in our credit account. It's unlimited, if you want to look at it that way. In other words, I know we can actually go buy a house with that credit. The challenge comes, to whom am I going to say that? Who's going to give me trouble over, well, no, we need your cash? Or I guess what I'm saying is, I got the information, I know what you're saying, but I haven't heard that it's benefited anybody. So
Yeah, I think that there's some people that are wanting to know on a physical level that their worth is this. And then others like you and I, like we're not interested in looking and discovering what the actual number is. I just know my worth as a divine being.
well, the thing is, we already do know, just as you said, let's, if everything has a CUSIP number and it's worth something, well, so you gather up all your docs and say, there, what, to the guy, the banker from whom I want a loan, or,
Hey,
surely the banker knows that we have unlimited credit. So the bottom line is still the same. So I'm wondering where's the advantage to my knowing these particular numbers?
It helps people though to know that this is real.
Oh, I
And-
got you. Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah.
and also
Thank
you could also say, when you write a letter to, you mentioned Bob Hamilton at CRA, if you just say yes, and my social insurance number is I've looked it up and it's traded with Fidelity Flex, and this is what it is. Then he'll know that
That
you.
know. Yeah. Okay, now that's good.
Christoph, go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to say that anyone who there was a mention about conspiracy theories. Well, I just put in my documents when I write them up, I just put in what I think is the truth. And if I don't receive a response or there's no comeback on that, then I know it's true.
Yeah. That's it. When they shut up or they go silent when they know you're right.
Yeah.
Which is to me the best response of all. Because the more of us who do that, the day's going to dawn when they do this.
I mean, it's interesting you said earlier about when you hit the nail on the head, they won't say a word. I got given 6 tickets for that number plate on the back of my car on the 14th of December 2022. And I did my paperwork. First batch of paperwork was on the 24th of January of 2023. Did my court paperwork. And I said in the court paperwork that I'm very willing to come to court, but you have to pay me X, Y, and Z.
My time is valuable. Here's what
That's
it's going
right.
to cost you if you want
I
me there.
used that thing about slavery has been abolished and here's my fees. So I didn't hear a word back. I haven't been arrested. I mean, police cars come by me now. They follow me down the road. Nothing happens to me.
Oh, that is good. Yeah. And by the way, one of the other things, Karen, that when you said, how did I get onto this? A lot of it came from my just refusal to cooperate with any of this nonsense. And therefore, I got into trouble. And then as a consequence of that, I said, well, this can't be right. So now I'm going to get to the bottom of why is this? Why do these people, my favorite time in court was when I went willingly. This is about 25 years ago or more. And I said to the judge, I put this in recently. I said to the judge, prove you have jurisdiction over me. Now, see, now I would say, I know you have jurisdiction over the account, but you'll have to prove you have jurisdiction over me. And he literally did this. No answer. Now, if I knew then what I know now, I'd say, second time, prove you have jurisdiction over me.
Mhm.
No response? No. Third time, no. In other words, you're out of luck here almost. I'm leaving as soon as I ask again. Prove you have jurisdiction over me. No, it's okay. Goodbye. What's to do?
Thank you, Mary. Claudia, we have time for one more question. I have 1 minute.
I just wanted to build on what you were just saying, and thank you for this great meeting. Brady Quaren is a friend of mine out in Saskatchewan. He won in court basically saying that because they own all the certificates. So what he did is he said, well, where's the queen? She's enjoined her. She owns these certificates, so they have to be here. Just like you said, you don't have jurisdiction over me. You have jurisdiction over these certificates, which belong to the crown. So if you got to get the queen here. So they discontinued the case. They sealed the file. Okay. So he called up the Governor General of Saskatchewan and said, because now they work for him now because he's just proved it, right? So he asked the Governor General, Lieutenant Governor of Saskatchewan for a copy. She sent him to the Attorney General of Saskatchewan. The Attorney General said, call the clerk and you'll get a copy. And he said, do I look like I work for you? And then they sent him a copy.
Yeah.
So I've put it into some people in the chat, but Brady Quiren's case proves that they own the certificates and they're enjoined her. So that's to us, that's a win.
Well, the other thing is what would be fun. Again, I wouldn't bother doing this, like going to court just to make them wrong. But when it says Regina or the Queen, well, tells you where I am. I don't think Charles is king, but anyway.
Exactly.
I think it's all just a big joke.
It is. It's theater.
Yeah, exactly. So but the old caption letters used to say, Her Majesty the Queen versus. The first thing you walk in, you say, the Queen's here? Where's the Queen? Did you, I hope you notified her, because if the plaintiff isn't there, now what? Well, this is a representative of the Queen. Okay, so you want a representative for the defendant. Okay. This isn't going anywhere, is it? Because don't I have, remember the old line, don't I have a right to face my accuser? If the Queen thinks I've done something wrong, she better cough up and be here and prove it. Not so much fun. But it's one of those, I'm not going to bother doing. By the way, here's a question if anybody can answer. Is Queen's Bench still called Queen's Bench, or is it now called King's Bench?
King's Bench.
Is it really?
It is.
I
Yeah.
can't believe this.
Yeah.
It's just too much fun, isn't it?
And the amazing thing is that I just saw a video and it was Daniel Smith when she stood and stated her oath, swearing to the king. And so many people believe that she has an oath to the people. And she does not have an oath to the people. And no premier has an oath to the people. And yeah, so there's, just lie upon lie that we have to unhook from. Yeah. Thank you, Claudia. That was a great connection there and great comment. Thank you. One of the things that I think that we are all stepping forward into, and what I teach at Life First Canada, is that there's two versions of us, right? The living man or woman, and then there's the person, citizen, resident. And what has caused us so much anxiety and suffering and frustration and stress in our lives is because we have taken on the identity of that person, citizen, resident, and it's up to us right now to unhook ourselves from the consumer identification. And we are not that. We are these incredible, creative, powerful men and women, and we have a divine essence in us that is meant to be here to step forward and step into our true divine power. And so thank you, Mary, for bringing that to all of our attention through your books over the years and saying yes to your journey. It's just been incredible.
Well, it's been great fun. I've been through some harrowing experiences over it, but for the most part, it's been great fun.
So at Life First Canada, when we want to celebrate you, what we do instead of clapping is we raise our hands like this. And so we're just, yay, Mary. We think you're so incredible.
That's cute. Well, it was great fun. Yeah, and I thank you for your invitation.